Welcome to our channel.
Good day to you. This is Mr. Mlenga, your teacher of Civic Education. So today I want us to look at Civic Education GCE 2025 past paper, and we shall focus on how to answer section C. So without wasting much of the time, I would like us to look at section C. Remember, section C has 40 marks and it consists of 5 essay questions, and you are expected to answer any 2 questions of your choice, meaning each question in this section carries 20 marks. Let's take for instance question 1. Question 1A says discuss 3 types of corruption, 6 marks. 1B says what are the roles of public officers and the community in the fight against corruption, 14 marks. That gives us a total of 20 marks. Question 2A says, what is culture? 2 marks. 2B says, discuss Zambia's cultural practices, 18 marks, giving us a total of 20 marks. Question 3A says, explain different forms of child abuse, 14 marks. Then 3B says, what are the ways of addressing child abuse, 6 marks, giving us a total of 20 marks as well. Question 4 says, explain the role of the media in governance, 8 marks. 4B says, analyze the factors that limit media coverage, 12 marks as well, giving us a total of 20 marks. Question 5A says, what is the Intestate Succession Act, 2 marks. Then 5B says, describe the distribution of the estate of an intestate in Zambia, 18 marks, giving us a total of 20 marks. Now, when you look at section C, like I said, and like you have seen, there are 5 essay questions, and you are expected to answer any 2 essay questions of your choice. Now, here is the tip on how to answer essay questions. First of all, it is very important that before you choose an essay question, you attempt a question or you choose a question where you have more information. And you need to pay particular attention to the marks allocated. Let's take for instance question 1A. It says discuss 3 types of corruption, 6 marks. Meaning, for each type of corruption you explain, you get 2 marks. And when you are looking at section C, since it is an essay, it requires you to write essays, you are supposed to write in paragraph form, starting with the introduction, the main body, as well as the conclusion. So in the introduction, that is where the question should come out. That is where you tell the marker or the reader about what your essay is going to discuss or talk about. In the main body, that is where you answer the question. Now, you go straight to answering the question. In the conclusion, you're just going to summarize a few key points you raised in the main body. Now, if you look at 1B, which says what are the roles of public officers and the community in the fight against corruption, 14 marks. This means that you are supposed to raise 7 well explained points, and each point should have its own paragraph. Very important. You have to deal with the way marks are allocated. If you see 14 marks like that, it means you are going to raise 7 well explained points so that each point can give you 2 marks. The same thing if you look at question, let me take you back. If you look at question 2A, what is culture? Just for the definition of culture, you are going to be given 2 marks. Then 2B says, discuss Zambia's cultural practices, 18 marks. 9. You're supposed to raise 9 well-explained points, and each point should have its own paragraph, so that you get your 18 marks. Now, let me take you straight to the perfect example. Let's take, for instance, we've picked question 1 to be one of our questions we're going to attempt. So question 1A says discuss 3 types of corruption, 6 marks. And question 1B says what are the roles of public officers and the community in the fight against corruption, 14 marks. So remember, this is an essay question and you're expected to start with an introduction. Here's an example of an introduction. Today, we are living in a world where corruption is so rampant, almost in every society. It is said that corruption is the abuse of one's official position for personal gain or benefit, or simply giving of money, valuables, or receiving of a service to someone in return for a favor. Therefore, this essay aims at discussing the 3 types of corruption and thereafter to explain the roles of public officers and the community in the fight against corruption. Now, that is your introduction. You have well stated what the essay is all about in your introduction. And it is very important to do that because this entices the reader or the marker to find out what your main body is going to say. Now, to answer 1A, we start. To start with, there are 3 types of corruption, which include petty corruption, grand corruption, as well as political corruption. Petty corruption is a type of corruption that is widely practiced in Zambia and usually involves small amounts or small payments or amounts of money. The payments are called bribes. This type of corruption is locally commonly referred to as nchekelako, meaning give me my share. An example we can give is that of a traffic officer at a roadblock being offered a small amount of money to allow a driver who has no driver's license to proceed. Next paragraph. Now, there's something very important that you must do at the beginning of each paragraph, and that is to start with a conjunction word. Please always start with conjunction words like furthermore, nevertheless, in addition, moreover. Those are very important words to start with a paragraph. Use conjunctions, please. So here we go. Furthermore, grand corruption is a type of corruption which involves substantial or huge amounts of money. It is usually practiced by high-ranking officials in government. For example, during awarding of contracts, public appointments, or privatization of government-owned assets, grand corruption is quite common. Let's go to our next paragraph. Additionally, political corruption is the use of political power to illegally gain advantage over others in the electoral process. This is practiced when contesting for political power. Political corruption can be divided into 2 categories, namely voter bribery and buying voters' cards. This may, for instance, include giving of monies, mini meal, beer, donations to voters, and buying voters' cards in exchange for money, salt, sugar, soap, and many other things, many more. This type of corruption is common during election campaign period. Now, that does not mean that this type of corruption only happens during election campaign period. It can happen before, during, and after elections. That is political corruption. So for a point that you've explained like this, you are going to get your 2 marks. You're going to be awarded your 2 marks for each point that you raise. So we have answered 1A, which talks about the 3 types of corruption, and we have gotten our 6 marks. Let's get to the second part of the question, B. Nevertheless, in order to curb corruption, it is important that everyone participates in the fight against corruption. Hence, public officers and the community play a key role in the fight against corruption. To start with, fighting corruption begins with people changing their attitudes from tolerance to rejection of corruption. People should just simply say no to corruption. You are now answering the question. Also, people should access information on procedures on how to deal with corruption cases. This can help them in the fight against corruption. Similarly, we are using conjunction words. If you've noticed, I'm using conjunction. Nevertheless, similarly also those are conjunction. Similarly, people should report corrupt officers to relevant institutions like the Zambia Police Service, the and Transparency International Zambia. Also, people should support organizations that fight corruption. Moreover, it is the duty of people to demand control and morality from public officials. People should not be quiet when they feel a corrupt case has been committed, regardless of who has committed it. In addition, during election, it is the duty of the community not to elect into office those who are known for corruption by not accepting their bribes. Furthermore, the community should encourage development of institutions, laws, and practices that can support citizens that report corrupt cases. This is where the Whistleblowers Act comes in, a very good law that protects those people who report corruption cases. Besides, people and the community should encourage and support free press. This is important in the fight against corruption because the media exposes corrupt public officials. To add on, public officers and the people in communities should also know the consequences of corruption in their society. This can be done through educational and sensitization programs on corruption in communities. It is said that knowledge is power. For example, people and public officers should know the procedures on how to acquire goods and services so that they are not caught up in corruption. Furthermore, public officers should resist and report bribes when they are offered. Also, they should stick to the code of ethics and regulations of their operations. Very important. So we have highlighted quite a good number of points that should be able to earn us marks. Remember, this part of the question was allocated 14 marks and we have raised at least 8 points. In conclusion, it can be said that corruption exists in 3 main types, which include petty, grand, and political corruption. Hence, in order to fight against corruption, both public officers and the people in community should say no to corruption, report corrupt officials, and fully understand the consequences of corruption. This is a conclusion, and that is a summary of what we've talked about in the main body. So this is what I expect you to bring out when you are writing an essay. It is very important you separate points in each and every paragraph. Each point should have its own paragraph, and make sure that you write your points according to the way marks have been allocated. If you see 14 marks, please write well explained points. Write well explained 7 points if you see 14 points. I thought of us going through the essays together, because this is part of the paper containing more marks, 40 marks. As you can see, 40% of the paper comes from this section C. So stay glued to the channel as we are going to answer in our next video essay questions in full for the 2025 GCE past paper. Stay glued to the channel.